Perfume has a rich history dating back thousands of years. Ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans used fragrances made from oils, spices, and herbs. Perfume making evolved through the Middle Ages in Europe, where scents were often linked to religious and medicinal purposes. In the 17th century, perfume gained popularity in France. King Louis XIV even appointed a personal perfumer. The art of perfumery continued to develop during the Renaissance. The 19th century marked a significant shift with the emergence of modern perfumery. In 1882, Aimé Guerlain created Jacqui, considered the first modern perfume. The development of synthetic compounds in the late 19th and early 20th centuries expanded the perfumer's palette. The 20th century witnessed the rise of iconic fragrance houses like Chanel, Dior, and Guerlain. The 1980s saw the boom of celebrity-endorsed perfumes. Today, the perfume industry continues to innovate, blending tradition with modern techniques to create an extensive range of fragrances. Pin-up girl posters became prominent during the 1940s and 1950s, reaching their zenith during World War II. These images were meant to boost the spirits of servicemen overseas and were often featured in military barracks. The art typically showcased idealized and alluring depictions of women in various playful or seductive poses. Artists like Alberto Vargas, whose work appeared in Esquire magazine, created elegant and sophisticated pin-up illustrations. His detailed and graceful portrayals became iconic during this era. Another notable artist, Gil Elfgren, known for his association with Brown and Bigelow, crafted images that combined sensuality with a sense of humor, often featuring women in humorous or unexpected situations. The pin-up phenomenon extended beyond art, influencing fashion, photography, and even film. Hollywood actresses like Betty Grable and Marilyn Monroe became celebrated as pin-up girls, contributing to the widespread popularity of this aesthetic. The style saw a revival in the 1980s and continues to inspire contemporary artists and designers, maintaining its enduring appeal as a nostalgic and visually captivating form of art. In the Rococo era, which was in the 18th century, people wore fancy and detailed clothes. Women's dresses were big and had lots of frills. They used soft colors like pastels and made dresses with delicate fabrics. Women's fashion focused on having a small waist, making their dresses have wide skirts. Men, on the other hand, wore suits with lots of details, and their shirts had ruffles. The fashion of the Rococo period was all about looking ornate and elegant. In Rococo women's fashion, attention to detail was key. Dresses were adorned with lace, ribbons, and embroidery. The sleeves often had puffs, and the neckline was decorated with frills. Accessories like fans, gloves, and elaborate hairstyles completed the look. Fabrics like silk and satin were popular, giving the dresses a luxurious feel. The focus on intricate details showcased the wealth and sophistication of the wearer. Ohaguro is a traditional Japanese beauty practice with origins dating back to the Nara and Heian periods. Initially widely adopted by samurai and aristocratic women, this ancient beauty ritual involved applying a special coloring to the teeth to make them appear black, enhancing their beauty. The primary ingredient in ohaguro is a substance known as kuro-denpun in Japanese, traditionally used in Japan's beauty practices. This substance is mainly derived from the sap of the Japanese sumac tree, often obtained through the exudate from the tree's bark. It is applied to the teeth using a toothbrush to create a black color. However, the popularity of ohaguro gradually declined from the Edo period onwards. This shift was influenced by changing beauty standards that favored white teeth and an increasing understanding of dental health. In modern times, the emphasis on teeth whitening, coupled with advancements in dental science, has rendered ohaguro uncommon. The Stanley Tumbler, invented in 1913 by William Stanley Jr., revolutionized beverage containers with its vacuum insulation technology. Originally popular among industrial workers, it was highly valued in tough work environments for its ability to maintain beverage temperatures. By the mid-20th century, the tumbler had become synonymous with durability and outdoor utility. Made with robust materials like stainless steel, it gained favor among outdoor enthusiasts, suitable for camping, hiking, and similar activities. The 1990s saw a shift, introducing modern designs and features to appeal to a wider audience. In the 21st century, the Stanley Tumbler's role as an eco-friendly product came to the forefront, aligning with sustainable living trends. Its contribution to reducing single-use plastics, coupled with improved design and insulation, made it a daily life staple. Recently, the tumbler has found a special place among Gen Z in the US, resonating with their environmental consciousness and preference for sustainable products. Its variety in colors and styles, along with its prominence on social media, has turned it into a trendy, must-have item for this generation, symbolizing more than just a beverage container. During the late 18th and 19th centuries' Industrial Revolution, child labor was common and harsh. The growth of large factories in Britain caused massive urban migration. Children, integral to this workforce, endured long, dangerous workdays in factories, often for minimal pay. Textile factories often hired young workers for their small size, useful in maneuvering through dense machinery for repairs and maintenance. However, this dangerous environment led to frequent injuries from accidents. Children typically worked over 12 hours a day in very poor conditions. By the mid-19th century, public opposition to child labor increased, leading to the 1833 British Factory Act. This law prohibited factory work for children under 9 and reduced work hours for those aged 9 to 13, marking a major advancement in children's labor conditions. Child labor persisted into the early 20th century, with children facing harsh conditions. Photographer Lewis Hines' work in the USA revealed these struggles, influencing public opinion and spurring enhanced legal protections for young workers, underscoring the profound impact of societal and technological changes on vulnerable children. The breeching ceremony is a traditional European and North American practice marking a young boy's transition from wearing dresses or skirts to pants, symbolizing his growth and maturity. Boys typically undergo this ceremony between the ages of 6 to 8, a critical stage in their development from early childhood to young childhood. The ceremony involves a significant change of attire, where a boy switches from wearing dresses or skirts to pants, a garment traditionally associated with adult males. This shift in clothing represents the boy's evolving role and his step towards a more mature phase of childhood. Serving as a symbol of growth, the breeching ceremony signifies a child's development from infancy to childhood. It is a celebrated occasion in the family and community, highlighting the child's progression in life. The breeching ceremony was more than just a clothing change. It symbolized strict gender roles of the past. It marked a move towards formal education and adult duties. But, as society evolved and gender roles and clothing norms relaxed, this tradition faded. Now, most cultures accept similar clothing for both boys and girls. The Day of the Dead, or Dia de los Muertos, is a Mexican holiday with ancient roots, originating from indigenous Aztec festivals dedicated to the goddess of the underworld, Mictlantecuhtli. It was originally celebrated in the 9th month of the Aztec calendar, corresponding to modern August. The arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century led to the fusion of these indigenous customs with Catholicism, particularly with All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day. This syncretism melded indigenous beliefs about honoring the dead with European religious traditions. The modern Day of the Dead, celebrated on November 1st and 2nd, combines elements from both its indigenous and Catholic heritage. Traditions include creating altars, ofrendas, with marigolds and offerings, preparing special foods like pan de muerto, and using symbolic sugar skulls to honor deceased loved ones. Recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity in 2008, the Day of the Dead is a significant symbol of Mexican culture. It's celebrated globally, highlighting the unification of communities through the remembrance and celebration of life and death. The fontange hairstyle, prominent in late 17th and early 18th century France, especially during the Rococo period, exemplifies the era's extravagant fashion. Named after the Duchess of Fontanges, a mistress of King Louis XIV, it's said she created the style by chance on a hunting trip when a ribbon caught in a tree, leading her to rearrange her hair with a ribbon. The fontange hairstyle featured curls and frizzed hair stacked high, often on a wire frame, forming multi-tiered curls and ribbons that became more complex and taller with time. Enhanced with accessories like lace, ribbons, and jewels, it was a symbol of both fashion and social status. The fontange hairstyle mirrored the Rococo era's love for opulence, reflecting its ornate art and architecture. In Louis XIV's court, this complex and lavish hairstyle was more than fashion, it was a status symbol, with greater elaborateness indicating higher social standing. The fontange hairstyle was trendy in the late 17th century but declined in the early 18th century. Despite this, its influence persisted, as high hairstyles remained fashionable throughout the 18th century. It embodies the extravagance of the Rococo era in France and illustrates how fashion reflects broader cultural and artistic trends. The term sandwich has an interesting origin attributed to John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich in the 18th century. Legend has it that the Earl was a dedicated gambler who didn't want to interrupt his card games for a full meal. So, he came up with the idea of placing meat between 2 pieces of bread. This clever invention allowed him to eat without using utensils and kept his cards and fingers clean. The convenience and practicality of this new way of enjoying a meal quickly caught on among the Earl's peers and beyond. People began requesting the same as sandwich when ordering this novel creation. Over time, this concept of placing various fillings between slices of bread became universally recognized as a sandwich, bearing the name of the Earl of Sandwich himself. It's worth noting that while John Montagu is often credited with popularizing the term sandwich, the practice of placing food between bread or similar materials has a much older history in various cultures worldwide. For centuries, people have used bread or flatbreads as a practical means of holding and consuming a variety of ingredients. Nonetheless, the association with the Earl of Sandwich has solidified the term sandwich in English-speaking countries and made it a globally recognized and beloved way of enjoying a meal. Uncle Sam is a famous symbol of the U.S. government and American people. He looks like an old man with a white beard and wears clothes in red, white, and blue, like the American flag. This includes a tall hat, a bow tie, and a suit. The idea of Uncle Sam started in the early 1800s. It comes from a man named Samuel Wilson, who gave meat to the U.S. Army during a war. The meat barrels had U.S. on them, and soldiers joked that it meant Uncle Sam, meaning the U.S. government. By the late 1800s, Uncle Sam was popular in cartoons and stories. He became even more famous during World War I and II. He was in posters to encourage people to join the army and show their love for their country. Today, Uncle Sam is a big symbol of the USA. He's seen in many places, like posters and ads, and stands for American values and pride. The most famous picture is the I Want You for U.S. Army poster. Uncle Sam is still an important symbol in America. Feed sack clothing was a clever idea back in the old days, especially during tough times like the Great Depression and World War II. People were very smart and used sacks that held animal feed, grains, or other farming stuff to make clothes. They didn't want to waste anything. These sacks were usually made from strong cotton or muslin material, and they had pretty designs on them, like flowers and stripes. People, mostly women, would sew these sacks at home into dresses, aprons, shirts, and even underwear. Some folks got really good at making them look fashionable. Not just feed sacks, but flour sacks were also turned into clothes. The flour companies started making their sacks look even nicer to encourage folks to reuse them. Making feed sack clothes wasn't just about sewing, it brought people together. They shared patterns and sewing tricks in their communities, which was a way to work together and be creative. Today, some embrace vintage feed sack clothing for its nostalgic charm and unique designs, celebrating the creativity of the past during challenging times. Do you know why Spam, originating from the United States, became one of the popular traditional holiday gifts in South Korea? After the Korean War, South Korea faced food shortages and economic difficulties. During this time, Spam was one of the items the United States provided in large quantities to support South Korea militarily. Spam, being relatively cheap and nutritious, became a more common food choice for Koreans to address food scarcity and boost their protein intake. And Spam was affordable, so it became widely used in home cooking. For example, Spam kimbap, an inexpensive and tasty snack, became popular, and dishes like Spam ramen gained popularity in regular households. Spam served as a budget-friendly ingredient that provided rich nutrition, playing a significant role in Korean dining culture. Also, American fast food culture and Spam, originating in the United States, had a big impact on Korean cuisine. For instance, a dish called budae-jjigae, which uses Spam, began in the Korean military and gained popularity. It's a separate meal made by boiling Spam, ramen, vegetables, tofu, and more together. These creative dishes based on Spam diversified Korean food culture and created new flavors. Have you heard about the Buckingham Palace break-ins by Edward Jones during Queen Victoria's time? It's a really interesting and unique event. Edward Jones, sometimes called the Boy Joneses, is known for sneaking into Buckingham Palace several times in the 1840s. Edward Jones first broke into the palace in 1838. He was just 14 years old and was caught while looking around inside the palace. This first break-in was considered a minor incident, and he was released after a short time in jail. Jones broke into the palace 2 more times after that. He got into the Queen's private areas and even tried to steal her stuff. These actions shocked society at the time and raised serious questions about the palace's security. After his last break-in, Jones was arrested and went through several trials. He was eventually punished by being forced to join the Navy. However, he tried to run away from the Navy several times and ended up in jail again. This incident reflects the social class issues, security concerns at the palace, and public attitudes towards the Queen during Queen Victoria's time. Edward Jones's actions were seen as very unusual and bold, and they show the curiosity and interest that the general public had in the Queen and the royal family.
The history of trams traces back to the early 19th century. This was a time when the Industrial Revolution was making great strides. As cities grew, so did the need for efficient urban transportation. Trams, powered by electricity or other means, became a key solution. Trams started as horse-drawn carriages in the 1800s, serving as early public transport in the UK and USA. They rode on railway tracks. The 1880s brought electric trams, first successfully operated in Berlin, Germany in 1881. This innovation rapidly went global, enhancing transport efficiency and speed, and transforming urban mobility. In the 20th century, trams were key in connecting city centers to suburbs, aiding urban growth. However, the mid-20th century saw a decline due to rising car use and improved roads. Cities started favoring buses and subways. From the 1970s onwards, trams saw a resurgence. They were now seen as eco-friendly and efficient for city travel. Many cities worked on modernizing and extending tram networks. Modern trams are fast and quiet.